we're talking about new vistas in management of diabetic kidney disease, as a nephrologist perspective, we all know that the current guidelines for DKD management are particularly restricted to lifestyle modifications, glycemic control, BP control, and use of ACE inhibitors and ARBs. This has already been highlighted by Dr. Wagner that patients who have diabetes and have diabetic kidney disease have unacceptably high mortality. A patient who has albuminuria and any degree of impaired GFR actually has 10 times higher mortality than a diabetic patient who does not have a kidney disease. And this increased mortality starts right from the start of albuminuria. Interestingly, as the study from Holland showed in 8,000 patients, that the patients who have chronic kidney disease today are more likely to die with a cardiovascular disease than with a kidney disease or an end-stage kidney disease. And actually, only stage 4, stage 5 end up in dialysis. Majority of our stage 1 to stage 3 CKDs die with a cardiovascular death. And therefore, what we need is a therapy to both improve cardiovascular as well as renal outcomes. Our gold standard currently are ACE inhibitors and ARBs. These are the two important trials which establish the primacy of RAS inhibitors in type 2 diabetes. And this graph looks at renal and IDNT. And what we can see in this smallish trials of around 1,500 patients each, that though we have a risk reduction to end-stage kidney disease of around 28%, there was still a significant proportion who did land up into end-stage kidney disease. And interestingly, none of these trials show any cardiovascular and mortality benefits in patients who were given RAS inhibitors. So once we talk about NeoVistas, we are looking at renal and cardiovascular protection in patients with diabetes over and above ACE inhibitors and ARBs. So in fact, fibrosis is seen to be a common link between cardiac and renal outcomes in patients who have metabolic syndrome, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, dyslipidemias, and smoking. This is only partially mediated by RAS activation, and we have other profibrotic pathways as well. So the current and emerging treatment for diabetic kidney disease basically is talking about SGLT2 inhibitors, the MRAs, and SGLP1 receptor agonists. All of you would have heard today, and so I would be a bit brief upon them and just talk what is relevant to my talk. As Dr. Saket has already highlighted, SGLT2 inhibitors practically reverse whatever diabetes does to the kidney, both in the proximal tubule as well as in the hemodynamic state. And therefore, it gives us pleiotropic benefits beyond just glucose lowering. It leads on to decrease in hyperfiltration, decreases proteinuria, controls the blood pressure, and decreases the body weight. So once we see the benefits of SGLT2 inhibitors on the cardiovascular outcomes, this is prior to the DAPA CKD and DAPA HF trials, and we can see that if the patient has lower GFR, the cardiovascular benefits are actually more as opposed to the patients who have a higher GFR. And this is reflected in number needed to treat. So once we are talking about a GFR between 30 to 45, the number needed to treat to prevent one adverse cardiovascular outcome is only 21, as opposed to 79 once the GFR is more than 90. In patients who already have advanced stages of chronic kidney disease, a GFR of less than 45, these agents are still beneficial, though obviously more patients would have higher renal outcomes, and therefore number needed to treat is actually more in patients who have lower GFR. This somehow changed with two very important DAPA trials. The DAPA heart failure, though these included patients who were both diabetic as well as non-diabetic, the DAPA heart failure had around 50% patients who were diabetic. They included a GFR till a GFR of 20, and DAPA heart failure had a mean eGFR of 62, with around 43% having estimated GFR of less than 60. And again, even in these patients with low ejection fraction and heart failure, with and without diabetes, the use of these agents not only improved the cardiovascular outcomes, but also prevented a decline in GFR as opposed to placebo. And irrespective whether they were diabetic or non-diabetic, the level of benefits were the same. We got a bit more adventurous by doing a DAPA-CKD trial, which again recruited a patient still a GFR of 25. The mean eGFR was much lower, that was 43. And again, around 67% of the patients were diabetic. There was significant improvement in both composite cardiovascular and the renal outcomes. And again, the benefits were similar whether the patient were diabetic or non-diabetic. So this is a meta-analysis which basically looks at the cardiorenal benefits of SGLT2 inhibitors. And as we can see, whether the patient is diabetic or non-diabetic, their benefit seems robust, both in preventing adverse cardiovascular as well as renal outcomes. Another issue which has often come up is their safety in a real life setup. In a real clinical setting, how useful these drugs are. This is a beautiful study, which is actually a Scandinavian cohort study, which looked at new initiation of SGLT2 inhibitors versus DPP4 inhibitors in cohort matched around 27,000 patients, around 20,000 patients. And what they found was that even in a real life setting, SGLT2 inhibitors, as opposed to DPP4 inhibitors, reduce the hazard ratio of a cumulative adverse renal outcome to a tune of around 60%. So whether you are looking at a trial setting or a real life setting, these agents are safe and useful. So what is the current status of SGLT2 inhibitors in our setting? These are cardiorenal drugs with unprecedented potency in improving cardiorenal outcomes, safety even in real-world usage, and it is all over and above RAS inhibitors. All these trials actually give ACE inhibitors or ARBs to the maximum recommended or tolerated doses. However, unanswered questions which still remain are whether you would be useful in patients who have low levels of albuminuria. This has been partially addressed in SPORT trial, which has just been published in NEJM. Whether they would be useful in patients who have an estimated GFR of less than 20 or patients who have normal ejection fraction with heart failure. The other group of agents which have come up very promisingly are the MRAs. We all know the story of spironolactone. Aldosterone, we all believe, is a common link which not only causes fluid retention, hypertension, but it also causes renal and cardiac fibrosis. Spironolactone was the first generation MRAs. Eplerenone, again, is a second generation, though they both are steroidal. Eplerenone is saved of some anti-androgenic effects of spironolactone. New third generation Finerenone is actually a non-steroidal MRA, and there is evidence that it causes less hyperkalemia, which probably is the most limiting problem of using MRAs over and above ACE inhibitors. We have two very interesting articles which have come up recently regarding the use of Finerenone in patients with diabetes and kidney disease. The first was Fidelio-DKD trial, which basically looked at patients with estimated GFR of either 25 to 60 with without macroalbuminuria and with the eGFR of 25 to 75 with macroalbuminuria. All patients, as I said, received RAS inhibitors to the maximum recommended or tolerated dose. The mean eGFR was 44 with albumin creatinine ratio of 852. And what they found in this 5,600 odd patients was that giving Finerenone improved at 2.6 years median follow-up as opposed to placebo, improved the renal endpoints to a tune of 18% and cardiac outputs to the tune of 14%. The risk of hyperkalemia was there. In fact, it was 2 times greater in patients who received Finerenone, but still discontinuation was infrequent. So though you have hyperkalemia, but you would really need to discontinue these patients of the drug. The number needed to treat to avoid kidney failure outcome was 29. And interestingly, around 1/3 of the patients had sustained reduction of albumin creatinine ratio starting right from month 4, which persisted at 2.6 years follow-up. So just comparing the 3 important trials, the CREDENCE, the DAPA-CKD, and the FIDELO-DKD, we can see that number needed to treat to prevent a cardiovascular, to prevent a renal outcome was 22 in CREDENCE, 19 in DAPA-CKD, and FIDELO, it was 29. All of this is over and above RAS inhibitors and whatever benefit they provide. And similarly, the hazard ratio for cardiovascular outcome was also independently beneficial in all these three trials, as I've already been highlighted. Last month, we also had this FIAGRO-DKD investigators. This basically recruited around 7,500 patients in the early stages of diabetic kidney disease. You had patients who were in stage 1 and stage 2 with macroalbuminuria, or stage 2 to stage 4 CKD without macroalbuminuria. And again, all the patients were treated with RAS inhibitors. They primarily looked at the cardiovascular outcome with secondary renal outcomes. And again, the primary composite cardiac outcomes were much better in patients who received phenylalanine. The hospitalizations with heart failure were lower, and kidney composite outcomes tended to be better in patients who received MRAs as opposed to those who received a placebo. Again, there was significant reduction in albuminuria starting from month 4, and again to the tune of around 32%. Hyperkalemia-related events were even lower, maybe because we were dealing with of diabetic kidney disease. It was reported in 1.2% cases. And again, very rarely the patients needed to discontinue the drug. So how do the MRAs fare in the current scenario? We again have a CV and renoprotective benefit, as well as anti-proteinuric effects over and above ACE inhibitors and ARBs. With third generation agents, we have lower incidence of hyperkalemia. And as the FIDELO-DKD trial would suggest, that we have some cardiovascular and renal outcome benefits even in early stages of CKD. And frankly, the combination of SGLT2 inhibitors looks an interesting proposition, though it has not been tested till date. And finally, the GLP-1 receptor analogs. Again, this has been talked about a lot, and even Dr. Saket has covered it to a great extent. They also tend to have a pleiotropic benefit, including weight loss, improving insulin sensitivity, improving cardiac, as well as liver outcomes. I just would like to present a meta-analysis which was published in last month, that is August 10th, and this included the recently published trial of Amplitude-O. In this meta-analysis, there were around 60,000 patients. The primary endpoint obviously were for heart, because we don't have a primary endpoint renal trial for GLP-1 receptor analogs. And the secondary endpoints were renal endpoints. Again, whatever be the scenario and whatever be the agent, these agents decrease cardiovascular mortality, and these agents also tended to improve the composite renal outcomes and worsening renal function. The only trial which went away from the radar was ELIXA. However, we have to understand that the ELIXA was in patients who had just recently sustained an acute myocardial infarction. So unless we are talking about this set of patients who have an acute cardiac event, it is beneficial in almost all other group of patients who have diabetes with or without cardiovascular disease. So what is status of GLP-1 receptor agonist in current scenario? They have additional agents to reverse the cardiorenal metabolic axis. They affect irrespective of the type of the agent. Amplitude-O did stratify the patients according to the use of SGLT2 inhibitors, and they found there was no decrease in the efficacy with the use of SGLT2 inhibitor. We have a very interesting trial, that is FLOW trial, which is ongoing, which is primarily looking at the renal endpoints. So just to come to my closing comments, even with treatment of diabetes, which is effective as per as the current scenario, the patients going on for diabetic kidney disease and cardiovascular risk are very high. SGLT2 inhibitors, the MRAs, the GLP-1 receptor agonists, have shown to reverse the cardiac renal metabolic axis in these high-risk individuals. We as healthcare team need to work together, and CKD, I would like to say, actually is a good team interaction between cardiology, the kidney specialist, and the diabetologist. So in the end, ladies and gentlemen, we should always, if possible, try to hit two targets with one bullet. And while treating patient with diabetes, especially in the current scenario, we should try to benefit the patient not only with the glycemic benefit, but also look at the cardiorenal benefits in these trials. Thank you very much.